All right, we're watching what's going on in connection with the pending charge we expect to be filed right at the top of the hour. We'll learn word of that from Angela Corey, the special prosecutor in Florida. She'll go to that microphone there. But let's bring in CNN's newest legal contributor, Mark Nejame. He's a criminal defense attorney in Florida. He's joining us on the phone now from Orlando. A lot of people expect that she will file this charge, manslaughter potentially. We don't know for sure, obviously, but tell us what you're learning, because I understand, Mark, you're well connected. You're getting some new information as well. Well, we have just gotten confirmation that he is in custody. George Zimmerman is in custody right now with the Department of Law Enforcement in the state of Florida. He's been in communication with them and has apparently voluntarily surrendered. Significantly, he has new counsel, Mark O'Mara, who is in the process of meeting with FDLE and Mr. Zimmerman, and they are in communication. The terms of the bond are unknown at this time. There'll be discussions with them regarding that, and there'll be more information. I suspect Ms. Corey will give us more specifics as it relates to the specific charge and the amount of the bond in her upcoming press conference. But it is confirmed that he is in FDLE custody. He is in the state of Florida, and he has new counsel, Mark O'Mara. Mark O'Mara is a very excellent attorney in the Central Florida area. He is board certified in criminal, and I think the only lawyer in the state who's both board certified in criminal and domestic. Excellent counsel, and I think the case is now going to be proceeding accordingly. Do we know if Zimmerman actually ever left the state of Florida, or did he come back voluntarily over the past, let's say, 24 hours? He was out of the state of Florida, as I understand it, for his safety. When he heard that this was likely happening, as I understand it's been relayed to me, that he came back in, was in contact with FDLE, and voluntarily has surrendered himself. Do we know what city he's in right now? I've spoken to Mr. O'Mara just a few minutes ago. He asked that I not disclose that information, so I'm going to honor that information, mainly for safety, and allow Ms. Corey to disclose that which she believes is appropriate. But he is absolutely in the state of Florida. He did a voluntary surrender, as I've been advised by Mr. O'Mara, and FDLE, Mr. O'Mara, and Mr. Zimmerman will be in contact throughout the rest of the day. In your conversation with Mark O'Mara, the new attorney representing George Zimmerman, did you find out if he knows and if he shared with you what specific charge or charges the special prosecutor will file against Zimmerman? He's not seen that. It's speculation, so he's simply awaiting direct information from FDLE or Ms. Corey's office, but in greater likelihood, Ms. Corey will go ahead and announce that herself. And what's the general formula, procedure, after she announces the charge or charges she's filing against Zimmerman? At what point do we actually see Zimmerman in court or walking into court or at a precinct, at a police station? When will we actually, in your experience, and you have a lot of experience, Mark, in Florida, when will we see him? Well, the way it would typically work is you get arrested and then there's a bond. You can either afford to post that bond or you can't afford to post the bond. If you cannot afford to post the bond, then and you don't get out of court within the first 24 hours, then the first 24 hours you have what's called the first appearance. You have a initial appearance, and you go before a judge or magistrate, and then there will be a probable cause determination. And then either they'll keep the existing bond or you're, under Florida law, entitled to a bond hearing. And then, in fact, the judge would make a determination. I think the mere fact that Mr. Zimmerman has voluntarily turned himself in, and when he heard this was going on, would strongly suggest that a lower bond would be reasonable in this case, that he's not a flight risk to the extent that he apparently turned himself in voluntarily. And I suspect Mr. O'Mara will be speaking to the state attorney's office, Ms. Corey's office, or Ms. Corey, and they will attempt to work out a mutually agreeable bond. And if they are unable to do so, then they'll proceed to a hearing where a judge will make a determination. If the IA judge is not satisfied with the fact that it should be lower, or he or she wants to defer
to the judge assigned to the case, then that will be heard by the judge. Now, we don't know when he will appear in Sanford, so it's likely that we'll know more after we hear Ms. Corey's press conference.
Yeah, and we're waiting about 15 minutes or so from now. That's when she's expected to speak there in Jacksonville. How quickly, under normal circumstances, they file a charge, they've arrested him, he's in custody, would the whole issue of whether or not he would be free on bail, on bond, how quickly does that take place?
Should be taking place now. With this warrant, there will likely be a bond amount, either a no bond situation or a bond. And it's whatever the bond is, if Mr. Zimmerman, if it's within his ability to meet the amount of the bond and the special conditions, if any, of the bond, then they'll be processing that like they would any other case, and then they would post a bond, and then the case would be going on. In the event there was a no bond or a bond that he could not afford, then they would appear before a judge for a bond reduction or to set a reasonable bond, and that would take place at a day other than today.
Mark Nejam is our newest CNN legal analyst. He's a famed criminal defense attorney in Florida. I want you to stand by, Mark. We have more questions. Thanks for the information. The breaking news is that Zimmerman is in custody now in Florida. He had left the state of Florida, according to Mark, but now he is back in Florida, and he has a new attorney named Mark O'Mara, who is now representing him after his two other attorneys made that dramatic announcement yesterday they were dropping out. I want to get quick reaction from our own Roland Martin right now, who's been watching this case unfold dramatically. Assuming, Roland, that Zimmerman is charged, let's say, with manslaughter, how will that play? How do you think that will affect the family? I know you've been close to the family. What's going to be the reaction?
Well, remember, first and foremost, Wolf, the family made it perfectly clear that they wanted to see him charged, and so they were not specific as to whether or not it was first-degree murder, second-degree murder, or even manslaughter. They felt he should have been charged. They have been saying, including Attorney Ben Crump, there was probable cause to arrest him. I talked to Crump about 30 minutes ago. They had not gotten any word about the specific charge, but he made it perfectly clear that the family was happy to see justice moving forward. I've also been in contact with, of course, civil rights leaders as well, as they've been monitoring this case as well. But again, the most important thing from them was simply that he be charged and arrested, and that this go before a jury and a judge to have all of the facts come out to find out what took place on the night their son, Trayvon Martin, was killed on February 26th.
And we will expect to get reaction from the family, the parents of Trayvon Martin, Roland, fairly soon after Angela Corey makes her announcement.
Right. The news conference would take place right after that. And so they also have several other attorneys across the country who will also be speaking as well. Darryl Parks is one of the attorneys, along with Ben Crump. He is there in Washington, D.C. Natalie Jackson is another attorney. She is in Orlando. She is scheduled to talk about this on Aaron Burnett's show out front at 7 p.m. And also Jasmine Rand is another attorney. She's right now in Tallahassee. They have her in position as well to also share their thoughts on this case. And so the family right now, they're in Washington, D.C., because they have been attending Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network Conference, where they also met a little bit earlier today with Attorney General Eric Holder.
Roland Martin will be watching all of this unfold. He'll be standing by as well. Lots of anticipation in Florida right now, indeed around the country, for an announcement by the special prosecutor, Angela Corey. We'll have complete coverage, live coverage of that announcement. Once the special prosecutor shows up there, we expect her to announce she's charging the shooter, George Zimmerman. You'll see her remarks live. And we'll also look back at how the death of a Florida teenager, a 17-year-old boy, unleashed national protests and outrage.